but we will start with a nice, relaxing trip to the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands, proud home to a beach that is 7 miles long, proud home to a stingray population that is unrivaled in the world, proud home to hundreds, perhaps thousands of American companies enjoying the avoidance of paying American taxes. In what surely will deal a blow to his popularity among tax-avoiding American businesses and presumably the geniuses who rent out P.O. boxes in the Cayman Islands, today President Obama announced that his administration will finally stop American companies from stashing their profits in offshore tax havens.
For years, we've talked about shutting down overseas tax havens that let companies set up operations to avoid paying taxes in America. That's what our budget will finally do. That's why we're closing one of our biggest tax loopholes. It's a loophole that lets subsidiaries of some of our largest companies tell the IRS that they're paying taxes abroad, tell foreign governments that they're paying taxes elsewhere, and avoid paying taxes anywhere.
Shutting down overseas tax havens. What does this mean to the average American? Well, let's say you're a guy living in Houston, Texas. Say you are Bill Smith of Houston, Texas. Bill Smith makes, say, $50,000 a year. 25% of Bill's income is taxed by the federal government. Now, if you're a business headquartered in Houston, Texas, 35% of your profits are taxed. That's the corporate tax rate. But if you are a business headquartered in Houston, Texas, like the defense contractor KBR say, and you set up shell companies offshore, in that case, 0% of those profits are taxed by the federal government, which could realistically mean that Bill Smith could pay more taxes than KBR. Not relatively more, not as a proportion more, just more. Bill could end up literally paying more dollars to the government in taxes than a giant corporation does. How big a problem is this? Here comes the Let's Take a Trip to the Cayman Islands part of our program. What you see here is an address in the Cayman Islands listed as Ugland House. It is a 5-story building that is home to 18,857 businesses. Or I should say, it's home to the fake headquarters of 18,857 companies that want to look like they're headquartered there in order to avoid paying taxes somewhere else. If there really were 18,857 businesses there, don't you think the parking lot would be a little bigger? Places like the Cayman Islands, Liechtenstein, the Isle of Man, these have become go-to destinations for U.S. companies to set up fake headquarters so they can avoid paying U.S. taxes on their profits. So when you think Bank of America, think actually more like Bank of the Bahamas, Bank of Bermuda, Bank of Cayman Islands, Bank of Gibraltar, Bank of Luxembourg. In the year 2007, Bank of America had 115 foreign subsidiaries headquartered in places that would allow them to pay little or no taxes. Morgan Stanley registered 273 subsidiaries in far-flung tax-friendly locales like the Marshall Islands, the island of Jersey, and, yes, the Cayman Islands. How about Citigroup? Citigroup, an incredible 427 separate subsidiaries registered in tax havens, including 91 of them in Luxembourg, 12 in the Channel Islands, and stop me if you've heard this one before, 90 of them in the Cayman Islands. What do Bank of America, Citigroup, and Morgan Stanley all have in common, aside from their shared interest in paying no taxes? They are all recipients of our very generous taxpayer largesse. They have been bailed out by our taxpayer dollars in the past year. Yet they are stiffing us when it comes to paying their taxpayer dollars. And yes, before you email me, Rachel@MSNBC.com, yes, General Electric, the parent company of this network, in 2007 operated 7 subsidiaries in Bermuda, Luxembourg, and Singapore. This is not an individual bad companies problem. This is a tax code problem. Stopping U.S. companies from not paying taxes on their profits overseas, closing that loophole, would bring in about $21 billion in tax revenue each year. Revenue that is owed but is not being paid because of scams like the 18,000 companies in that one building in the Ugland House. The Republican Party has decided to come down on the side, remarkably, they have decided to come down on the side of the scam, pitting their political future on fighting for the rights of American companies to avoid paying taxes in America, like individual Americans do. Ever attuned to the populist sentiments of his constituents, Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, he called the president's plan, quote, a significant tax increase on companies. Actually, the tax rate isn't going up at all. It's just that corporations used to dodging taxes now will have to pay them. It's very revolutionary, I know. Joining us now is senior White House economist Austin Goolsbee. He is the chief economist for President Obama's Economic Recovery Advisory Board. Dr. Goolsbee, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Great to see you again, Rachel.
Let me give you an opportunity to correct anything that I got wrong there. Did I misstate the facts at all in terms of what this situation is?
Oh, I don't think so. And Rachel, I just can't. I'm a tax economist. Hearing you give the lecture on international tax evasion and avoidance, I'm just on a buzz. I can't believe it.
Now you know how I feel when people talk about infrastructure. Ooh, it's the same thing. All right. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says that what this plan announced today would be a tax increase on businesses. What's your reaction to that?
Look, the president got criticized in the campaign and as far back as several years ago when he's been calling for restricting tax havens and trying to end the tax breaks for companies to ship jobs overseas and give the tax breaks to companies that employ people and do research and development here in the United States. He's been criticized in certain pockets. I thought it was unbelievably cheeky of Senator McConnell to come out on the side of calling this a tax increase when the president laid out quite specifically, let's use this money to make the R&D tax credit finally make it permanent so that we can incentivize people to do research in the United States. I mean, the president has been calling for this for a long time, and we're finally going to go out and make this happen.
And the idea with the R&D tax credit is that you would stop people from evading paying corporate income taxes by using these offshore tax havens, but then some of that revenue that was captured because you stopped people from evading taxes, you would essentially give back to businesses in the form of tax credits for research and development. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And look, the point is the U.S. tax code has been filled with loopholes and things over the years such that you now have a way large diversity of tax rates. Even within business, it's not fair. You've got companies that are big multinationals that can afford all kinds of tax shelters and tax planning, paying very low rates. And then you've got companies that are just trying to expand and work in the U.S., and they're paying through the nose because the rates are higher. We need to equalize these rates and just use common sense rules like if you're taking deductions for the expenses overseas, you ought to first report the profits from overseas. So you got to pay taxes on the profits before you can take all of the expenses to reduce your tax bill, which is what the current system does.
The opposition to this from business interests is already seemingly pretty fierce. And, tactically, the hallmark of the administration thus far has been conciliation over confrontation wherever possible. I wonder if it is possible to avoid a direct confrontation with big businesses who have benefited from this tax dodge over the years about this plan.
I don't know if that I totally agree with the characterization that it's always conciliation and we never get in an argument about anything. I think there's going to be some businesses that oppose this. I know in the campaign when we first started describing this, we got a complaint from the lobbyists for either the Isle of Guernsey or the Vanuatu or somewhere that they felt that they were being singled out for being a tax haven. Look, of course some people are going to complain, but I think if you sit down with 95% of the American people and just explain to them what's happening, that there are companies that right now our incentives are not aligned, the companies can make money by shipping jobs overseas, and we can change the tax code so that companies can make money by growing jobs at home, I think everybody's basically on board with that.
John F. Kennedy is the first president that I know to have talked about trying to close this type of tax loophole. Presidents talk about trying to do this. Candidate Obama, Senator Obama, now President Obama, as you say, have been talking about this for a long time. Why hasn't it happened so far? What do you think makes this time different?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, why it hasn't happened in the past. I mean, certainly the power of special interests in this area is really quite large. I think we haven't seen as much emphasis in recent years on really putting forward concrete ideas of how would you do it, and sort of confronting the special interests where they live on these issues, and putting forward an alternative, which is let's try to get business and the American people and the economy all on the same page so everybody's going the same direction. I think now is also a bit different because the president is coming in with a clear mandate that we're going to change the way business has been done. And he was very vocal throughout the campaign that looking at the loopholes in the corporate tax code is going to be one of the first things he does when he gets in office.
I look forward to the fight in Congress with the Republicans defending the tax dodge. I think it's going to make for some good political theater. Senior White House economist Austin Goolsbee, it's really, really nice to have you on the show. Thanks for your time tonight.
Great to talk to you.